you. Come on in. Welcome to the Scum Bar.
Welcome to the Scumbar Podcast Marvel Movie Marathon, where we go through the 22 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, starting with Iron Man donning his first suit and ending with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. We will talk Iron Man, Captain America, the Tesseract, and everything in between. I'm your host, Captain Mattbrush, and with me today is the Red Skull himself.
Good day, Captain Mattbrush. That's not a Red Skull accent at all. I'm Anth0z.
I'm trying to honestly, I'm trying to recall exactly what his exact accent is like.
It's like a pseudo-German kind of accent.
The one line I can think of that he says that's really distinct in this movie is the, not a scratch, doctor.
Oh yeah, as he gives him the key and walks off into the rocket, yeah.
I don't know why I'm sounding like Sean Connery, though. I apparently can't do whatever his German accent thing is, so...
I think we'd have to listen to it a lot longer. And then if we watch it over and over again, we'll get it.
Anth0z, before we go ahead,
Yes.
let me tell the audience that this podcast will contain spoilers for this movie and the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Cool, thanks.
Now that we got that out of the way, I mean, I think people are welcome to learn that the Red Skull, this is like Hugo Weaving's last movie as the Red Skull.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, the Red Skull does return, but this is his
He
last
does
one.
return. And I think after watching, now that I've seen this all over again, I guess it makes sense why the Red Skull ended up being where he is in Infinity War and Endgame.
Yes.
I guess.
I'm not going to say it's like a perfect equation.
No.
But it's
And it doesn't need to be.
For Hugo Weaving not wanting to return as the Red Skull anymore after this,
Mm-hmm.
they did a pretty good job of still having it work in the universe. Because I mean, the Red Skull's supposed to be huge in the Marvel comics.
That's true.
It's
That's
kind
true.
of a shame he's only in the one film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Anyways, Anth0z, this week for our Marvel Marathon, we're going to be talking about 2011's Captain America, The First Avenger, starring Chris Evans, Sebastian Stan, Haley Atwell, Stanley Tucci, Hugo Weaving, and Tommy Lee Jones. Star-studded cast. There's so many people in this movie.
It's a great cast. I love it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anth0z, without further ado, let's go over a brief synopsis of the film.
Well, it is 1942. America has entered World War II, and sickly but determined Steve Rogers is frustrated at being rejected yet again for military service. Everything changes when Dr. Erskine recruits him for the secret Project Rebirth. Proving his extraordinary courage, wits, and conscience, Rogers undergoes the experiment, and his weak body is suddenly enhanced into the maximum human potential. When Dr. Erskine is then immediately assassinated by an agent of Nazi Germany's secret Hydra research department, headed by Johann Schmidt, aka the Red Skull, Rogers is left as a unique man who is initially misused as a propaganda mascot. However, when his comrades need him, Rogers goes on a successful adventure that truly makes him Captain America, and his war against Schmidt begins.
Da 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 da. So that actually is my cell phone ring for work. I was trying to, when I work overtime, it'll be like 3 a.m. and my cell phone has to ring, and I'll be like asleep, and then it wakes up my fiance, wakes up my dog, and I was like, it has to be something that doesn't annoy me that I wake up to. I was like, what's the most like patriotic, manly sound I could think of? So I went, I'll just type in Captain America theme, see what I get. Got that song. I didn't really recognize it from the movie. I was like, whatever, I'll just put it on. So now for the last year, that's been my overtime song. And it's just like, it's my call to war. It's my call to battle.
I remember that there used to be your ringtone for your mom, or it was just that your mom called and you had it as a ringtone. Because I remember we were talking.
It was on my phone,
and
yeah,
then,
back in the day, yeah.
Yeah. I hope that this song doesn't end up being like really annoying. Like you don't associate it with the pain
it's
of
been a
waking
year
up
now.
because of work.
It's been a year now and it still is fine. And then
Okay.
watching this movie was an interesting like reminder of that song. And it's like, it's still good. I
Yeah.
think it's because it kind of reminds me of Band of Brothers. It's like the same theme as Band of Brothers. Well, not really, but it's similar. It's horns, I guess.
It starts similar to the Superman theme. Dun, da, 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 da. Yeah.
He kind of is the Superman of the Marvel movies.
I think by color, but I wouldn't say. Okay, maybe in like mentality too.
You're right. He doesn't have like the powers of Superman.
Yeah.
But he's stoic, right?
Yeah.
And Iron Man is more like the Batman character.
Yes, rich man with a suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Genius inventor. I guess maybe not as much of a detective, but whatever. Anyways, doesn't really matter. It's not 1-to-1, but it's close enough.
Yeah. It's the Marvel version.
In the podcast here, before we split the movie into 3 different acts and go through it and break it down, I like to do something where I talk about how I felt watching this movie in theaters, what it was like before, back in the day, back in 2011 when I saw this movie. I remember I was kind of dragged to this one, which is really weird these days to think about it. But back then, I remember I saw Thor, I loved Thor, and I wanted to know so much more about the MC universe. And I saw the trailers to this movie, and I was like, oh, it's all, like, in the past. And it seemed so weird to me that the movie was, like, going back in time. And I remember at that time, I was like, oh, okay, I'll skip this one, and I'll see The Avengers when it inevitably comes out. And it's so weird now to think about that kind of mentality, because these days, you just watch anything Marvel puts out, because you know you're going to get so much more story. But back in the day, like, you didn't really know that, I guess. So I was just worried that I wasn't going to get anything I care about. And I remember my friends dragging me to see this. And I remember watching it, and I kind of thought it was a waste of time. I saw it and was like, the whole movie was in the past. And I was like, so what does this matter to the Avengers at all? Like, to me, it didn't matter back then, which is so funny. Because as I mentioned at the end of last week's podcast, or 2 weeks ago, this movie, every time I watch it, I like it a little bit more. So it just gets better and better.
Nice.
So this last watching of it, I was really into it, and I really liked it. I don't know what I was thinking back in 2011, because this is one of the best.
You were a fool.
I was a fool. What, do you remember seeing this movie for the first time?
I think I do. Okay, so I'm kind of the opposite, because when I watched it in theaters, I think I was kind of just blown away by everything, and I just thought, oh, that looks cool. This is great. This is awesome. Like, I didn't question how. I don't think I did. How Steve Rogers' characters, like how Chris Evans looked as like a 13-year-old body in a 20-year-old man or 19-year-old, whatever.
You just believe it.
I think I was just too engrossed in the movie already by that time for some reason. So that, and then I'm thinking back now based on watching it the other night, that there's all these really cheesy moments and like slow-mo scenes that I find really cheesy now. In theaters, I don't think I thought that. I probably just thought, oh, this is so cool, the way that they're like building this part up. And so I think I really enjoyed it in the theaters. And even though I find things different now, like I notice how cheesy or maybe how off things might be, it doesn't necessarily take away my, like, how much I like the movie anyway. Because I just found that I definitely enjoy his character. He's kind of the one of the few characters who, I guess the arc. I find that the story arc is not as expansive as maybe some other characters, because he's pretty genuine. He's always like kind of truly himself, Captain America, like Steve Rogers.
Yes.
And this movie is pretty much definitively showing you that it's about him, and it's not who he is as a person, not who he is as Captain America. Exactly. Captain America just happens to be the label he takes on, like the mantle that he takes on, but truly the movie is about the characteristics of Steve Rogers. So
just as the doctor points to his chest on his deathbed, and he can't say anything, but he just points to his chest, and that tells you everything about Captain America. It's all on the inside. And we're reminded that so much in this movie. Like, I actually don't know who directed this. I didn't search it up or anything like that, but it's just interesting how many times they remind you of the theme of this movie, which, like you just said, it's all about what you're like on the inside that counts. And they just knock you over the head with that so much in the first half of this movie, and it's so good for that. But I gotta say, I do agree with you on the cheesy bit. The second half of this movie is not as exciting. I mean, my fiance and I actually re-watched the beginning, like the first half of this movie. We watched it, and then we paused it because we had to go and eat some food. And when we're eating some food, we're talking about it so much, we're like, let's just watch it again. So we re-watched from the beginning again. Just love that part so much. But it's the second half where it does seem to drop off, and it's not bad. It's more of an action movie in the second half. And it's funny because it's not necessarily what you need as much in this movie. Now, in the later Captain America films, we'll get into those as we get there. They're much more about the actual action, and they're very good at it. So
Yeah.
the action scenes are incredible. But in this movie, it's not as much about the action. It's so much more about the characters, and what you do get is great. So
Yep, I agree. I just quickly looked it up. This one is directed by Joe Johnston.
anything else that he's done?
He did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jumanji, Jurassic Park 3,
Honey, I Shrunk the
Rocketeer. Yeah,
That's a
he's
great movie.
He's done a bunch of movies that I've actually seen and liked them.
Jumanji.
I did not see. Wait, October Sky. I think. No, I didn't watch that. I didn't watch Hidalgo, and I didn't watch The
Hidalgo's
Wolfman.
a good film. That's a really good one.
Oh, that's with
Viggo
Viggo
Mortensen.
Mortensen. Yeah, well, I should watch that.
Yeah.
Hidalgo.
All right. Okay. Well, let's move into
Hidalgo. Kidding.
Hidalgo, Act 1. No. So we're gonna break the movie down to 3 acts here, and just give our little spots on it. So Act 1, we both must have started at the same spot for Act 1 here, which is the beginning of the movie.
I think so.
I named mine I Don't Like Bullies. What did you name yours?
Oh, nice. I named mine It's Hailing. As in, like, Hail Hydra, because aside from the fact that, like, the movie opens up in modern day, like, I mean, technically they're in, like, a Hydra craft.
Right.
But then, anyway, we shoot to 1942, and it's about Hydra infiltrating, and the end of my Act 1, it also ends with Hydra kind of coming on top. So that's why I labeled mine It's Hailing.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I like it. So it's funny. I actually, one of my names is going to be a pun for a Hydra thing as well. I didn't name it as my fiance, but I liked it so much I wrote it down. So I was like, that's going to be the name of my act.
You're not really thinking about picking Rogers, are you?
I wasn't just thinking about it. He's a clear choice.
When you brought a 90-pound asthmatic onto my army base, I let it slide. I thought, what the hell? Maybe he'd be useful to you like a gerbil. Never thought you'd pick him. You put a needle in that kid's arm, it's going to go right through him. Look at that. He's making me cry.
I'm looking for qualities beyond the physical.
Do you know how long it took to set up this project? Of all the groveling I had to do in front of Senator What's-His-Name's committee?
Yes, I'm well aware of your efforts.
Then throw me a bone. Hodge passed every test we gave him. He's big, he's fast, he obeys orders. He's a soldier.
He's a bully.
You don't win wars with niceness, Doctor. You win wars with guts. Grenade!
Oh man, Tommy Lee Jones just popped in this movie. I remember
really
not
did.
liking him in the theaters, like I mentioned, but man, he's so funny in this.
He's just got this like persona that happens to pop in like everything he does. I don't know how, but yeah.
I know I wouldn't say he's like going all out and being a
No.
totally new person, but he's just being Tommy Lee Jones, but it works so well for who he is.
I think
so funny.
I think yeah, and especially I like having him be the kind of like the rough soldier next to the like more sophisticated Agent Carter, like side by side, and they're basically in front of the recruits like at like the same time.
Yeah,
I'd like together at all times, right? So
I also like this thing. My fiance and I were mentioning this, and we can talk about this later a little bit too. But I just like how we get to go back in time to the earliest part of Marvel and see people even older than Steve Rogers that helped create, you know, who he is and get him to that point. And then he inevitably, it's like a domino effect. He inevitably helped create a bunch of other people as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just nice to see this doctor here and this colonel there, and just how they've changed things to end up making this one man that they end up believing in inevitably. So it's just so cool how they mold him to become Captain America. Because when we look at Cap later on in the series, he's the oldest one we know. He's like the face of the older generation. But in this movie, we're actually seeing him as the younger generation and the older generation molding him to be like them. So it's very interesting.
yeah, very. Yeah.
Anyways, we start off the movie in Norway, which is funny. I don't know why I thought it was a totally different town, but we're in Norway and we see Mr. Filch.
Mr. Filch or Walder
Mr.
Frey.
Filch. Walder
It's Walder Frey.
With some kind of Norwegian accent, I guess. I didn't really pick it up, to be honest. But it's an interesting scene. He's just kind of trying to hide something, and then we get the first entrance of the Red Skull Doctor.
Johann Schmidt.
Johann Schmidt. And he comes in, and I actually really enjoyed this. I don't think I ever noticed these lines before, but he's saying like the treasures from Odin's halls and stuff like that about where the Tesseract was from, and I was like, holy smokes, there's a Thor reference. And then he looked at the tree
Yeah.
on the wall, and as soon as he looked at that tree, I said out loud, I was like, Yggdrasil. And then he goes, Yggdrasil. I was like, oh my god.
We know stuff.
Yeah, it blew me away though. I was like, oh my god. Like,
Yeah.
I had no idea they actually referenced the Norse mythology of it.
Yeah, so these are some things that I definitely did not catch when I was watching it in theaters because, you know, like we're doing now, we're watching it in time enough that we're retaining the knowledge from movie to movie.
I know.
So when they make these references, it actually makes sense to us now.
I know. It's never worked like that well for me, but this time, I'm actually catching stuff, so that's great.
Yeah.
And then I really enjoyed, I don't remember the name of the Midgard serpent. I can't remember the name of the serpent, actually. Normangander or something. And it's the snake that covers itself around the tree. Yeah. And anyway, so that it's funny that snake that he pulled out of the block is the thing that actually held the Tesseract. So the real Tesseract. I didn't have much more for notes on this other than just I like that whole reference with Thor, and I like this castle, whatever this castle is. It reminds me of like a Knights Templar kind of thing. There was like knight helmets on the shelf and stuff. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, that's why I see him so much more as Walder Frey as opposed to Filch.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the high hold. I guess in terms of the scene, I'm not sure if I caught this when watching it in the beginning, because I think prior to this I never actually knew Red Skull's like human name, like his alias. Well, I guess Red Skull's the alias. So maybe in the beginning they kind of teased that he was the Red Skull because they when he shot Filch or Walder Frey, the blood splattered onto his hydropin, and just over the skull specifically, or mainly over the skull,
to make
so
it the red,
to represent that.
There's a lot of imagery in the movie for that to like kind of really hit home what he's gonna look like before you see him.
Yeah, so I didn't think about it then. I thought about it now, and I thought, okay, nice. So we actually do get a little bit of a tease. We don't just get like spoiled like right away. Yeah. So.
Also, Walder Frey does say, like, it'll burn you alive or whatever. And he's like, I've already been burned, doctor. He just calls everyone doctor.
Because he only talks to doctors. He doesn't think he doesn't want to waste his time on anybody less than a doctor. Yeah.
I also just wanted to say in this, I'll just mention it now before I forget later. In the first act of this movie, or at least what I call the first act, we get references to Thor. We just got it. To Iron Man. And then to Hulk. And I never really picked this up. My fiance mentioned it to me, though. But the Super Soldier Serum is inevitably how the Bruce Banner ended up becoming the Hulk. Yep. Was just an offshoot of it. So it's funny how, with the Avengers being those 4 core characters, and then you get the add-ons as well. But those 4 core characters are all referenced in the first act of this movie. So being Captain America, the first Avenger, they actually did a pretty good job at tying them all, I think. Keeping it all as kind of in the movie, even though they're not in the movie.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm not sure if they happen to reference a lot more in regards to the Avengers as a whole in this one. But if they did, then probably would have been a good idea just to set up for, like, knowing that Avengers was the next movie. Then at least it's less of like a jarring moment watching like all of a sudden a bunch of characters coming together. Like we've had enough moments. Getting to know the characters individually and getting references to the other characters so that we know that there is already some sort of connection building up. Yeah. So I think story-wise, or maybe storytelling-wise, is probably a good idea to do it that way, as opposed to just compartmentalize each of the characters and all of a sudden bring them together.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got nothing else for the scene, so I'm ready to move into New York, if you're ready to move in.
New York, yeah. I'm ready for New York.
So we get to move in. We get to see Steve Rogers. Young and skinny and behind a newspaper. I love that little gag with the newspaper being above his head, and then like he like crinkles it and you realize it's so short.
Oh man. And now watching this time around, I'm like, what? This is so weird, and something about his mouth looked too big to be that close to his chin.
Do you know how they filmed this?
I don't. No, do you know?
Okay. Yes, you can watch the CGI guys on YouTube that do it, the Corridor Crew.
Okay.
They do a whole segment on Marvel movies, and it's really cool. They go behind the scenes on a lot of this stuff, but they show you the Steve Rogers ones because it's really well done. But what they did is every single take with Steve when he was a skinny guy, what they did is they filmed it twice. So they had a body double, and the body double would do all the movements. Then they'd have Chris Evans come in, and he'd do the exact same take. Now, Chris Evans is obviously huge. And then they'd get the editors to come in, and the editors would stitch Chris Evans's face onto the body doubles. So they'd make one take out of it in the end.
Right. The body double, was he like a 13-year-old kid or something?
No, he's just a really skinny guy, but that was how skinny he was.
Wow.
So that was a real person, and then that was a real head of Chris Evans, and then it was just stitched together. So that is why the mouth, you could see, would be a little bit off in some moments, because they hadn't used it as much for the technology. It was a bit newer at the time, but it is crazy. Sometimes it's just uncanny, and you're like, holy smoke! Like it's believable enough that you just forget about it, and you're like, geez, like you get into it.
I think when there's less lighting, it's a little bit more believable. But yeah, not to say, like, I never really thought that his whole body was CGI. Like, I could tell that they had a body double who happened to be like that much smaller.
Right.
But I think maybe just because of his, like, Chris Evans's face, like his structure, it just didn't seem to work for the size of his body. It doesn't look proportioned right. So maybe if they did it around now, they'd have better techniques to doing it.
There's been some more movies that have used the same technique since then, and they've done it a lot better since then. So I'm sure they could have done it better. But it is crazy looking at the footage and seeing how they did it, though. It's really interesting stuff. It's interesting in the scene when he's trying to recruit himself to get into the army. We get to find out that his parents are dead, and I had no idea that Steve was an orphan. So I'm assuming this is not something he just lied about on the form, but he says that his dad died of mustard gas and that his mom had died of TB. And I think he's telling the truth there in that moment, because his parents are never mentioned ever again.
Right. You know what? I'm actually not sure either, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. So it's just an interesting thing. It's just that it's very much the hero story where he's orphaned from like Harry Potter kind of thing. He's an orphan from the beginning. So I just had no idea that was in this movie as well. But yeah, apparently it seems to be part of the trope there. And then he got the big old 4F, so he got denied from the army again.
Old 4F. Yeah, you know what? Okay, there's something. This is kind of just like a small note, but those I don't know why, but the font of those stamps, like the 4F or like the 1A, something about it actually looks like the swastika.
Yes, like I think 4F. I think it was on purpose. The 4F, the way they did it, they tried to make it look like the swastika. So
okay.
They cut to a swastika like not long after that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So I felt like they were trying to do that as a transition thing.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
I don't know why, but they were like, okay, so you don't join the army, so you're a Nazi.
This is how you must feel.
Yeah. So we see Steve go to a movie theater, watching Little Timmy doing his part too. I just like the movie theater scene because we actually get a parallel to this later on in the movie where he's back in a movie theater. So I just like that he's in the movie theater and he's feeling a little bit helpless, but still trying his best. So then there's a bully and he tries to take on the bully. And I just like that he's in the scene. And then we get that famous alley scene. Yeah,
and we get to see what I guess this would be the first characteristic of Steve Rogers' charisma that we get, that he's not somebody who runs from a fight. He stands up for what he feels like he should, and he does it. He doesn't back down. And we also get the first famous line, "I can do this all day."
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Now, I can't remember now, so you don't have to tell me, but I can't remember if he says it in Endgame or not. But I know on these podcasts I said earlier, before we knew what Endgame was going to be, I said that he has to say that in Endgame at some point. And I can't remember if he does or not, but he really has to, because it's such a good bookend for his character. I just want to see him fight Thanos and then him say, "I can do this all day." Like, it's just so perfect.
So he doesn't actually say it to Thanos, and technically the current version of Steve Rogers that we're watching in the first Avengers is not the one that we see that says it, because he fights himself,
right?
And so
that's when he says the line.
Yeah, so his younger version is he says it to our timeline Steve Rogers,
right?
And it's the whole like so he says like, "I can do this all day," and then our Steve Rogers goes, "Yeah, I know." I think because by that time, we're 22 movies in, and it's not the first time we've heard it. We've already heard it like 2 or 3 times. So
yeah,
I like that in Endgame they kind of take some time to call out all these things that from the beginning, that okay, we know you've heard enough of it. This is what we think of it too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I just maybe it's cheesy, but I like bookends like that, so I thought it would have been kind of fun to see him and Thanos have that little battle.
Yeah, that would have been really good actually if he as soon as like Mjolnir came back to his hand or something like that. I don't know, like maybe sometime around then, but I know what you mean. It would have been nice to have that in a really big moment against Thanos.
But we do get our first shield here, so he uses the trash can as a shield as well. So we get a really, like, it's pretty quick, but we just get a nice glimpse of Captain America, how he likes to be. He's got a shield in front of him. He likes to use that because he's ready for a battle. And it's just interesting. I like how the shield is like becomes his weapon of choice, and they do a good job of like calling to it before he even gets his actual shield weapon of choice. So it's pretty interesting.
And it's almost like because the shield gets swatted away, you're kind of led to believe already that okay, it's not about the shield. The shield does nothing.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
That's probably like a small thing. They might not have necessarily made it like they didn't want it to connect like that, but I think as a result, I see it that way.
Well, next we get good guy Bucky comes to save the day.
Yeah.
Comes in and gets rid of the bully real quick. I like their relationship, Bucky and Steve. It's part of the reason why the movies still work later on with Civil War and with Winter Soldier, I mean. Yeah, it's a good relationship between the two of them, and I like Bucky in these movies. I think he's just a really solid character and makes Steve better as well. But so Steve asked where we're going, and he says we're going to the future. I really think that's a call to
I think
the
so
later
too.
movies.
I think so too. I thought the exact same thing.
They're obviously going to the Stark Expo, but it's just like I feel like the writers knew what they were doing in that moment. Steve, we're going to the future, and it was like wink.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a specific line. It can't mean like, oh, we're just going to a convention, but it definitely means like, yeah, with this movie we're going to be projecting forward, like something bigger is happening later in the future. We're just in this time frame for now. That's all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which we then get to go to the Stark Expo future. Which did you catch? Like, I never got this before, but did you catch that this is so similar to Iron Man 2?
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well, yeah.
Yeah, I never got that, but it's like, it's just like when Tony's on the stage in Iron Man 2 and he's got the cheerleaders with him and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is the same thing, it's just in the 40s. Like,
yeah, so I think that whole scene was literally just to show, like, the, to start showing the similar characteristics of Howard and Tony. Knowing that he is, like, Tony's father. He already had the means to be he already had like the resources to produce high-tech stuff, but then we also find out later on in Iron Man 2 that he didn't actually have all the resources, but he was doing the best with what he had, right? And he was able to show a lot for it anyway.
We also get an interesting dynamic here with Steve and Tony Stark already. So Steve is getting introduced to Stark technology here, and with the car hovering, and instantly it breaks and falls down, but Tony what's his name?
Howard,
thank you. Howard kind of just brushes it off with a little joke, and then everyone keeps going on their merry little way. But you can almost see that, like, you can almost see Steve and Bucky, like, just not trusting that tech right away. They're just instantly like, I don't like that, you know? Like, they were like, whatever, just some kooky guy doing his thing. And it's like, it just kind of starts that prejudice that Steve will have for Tony right away, because he's not going to trust that kind of thing. He wants something that's more real and raw and open and honest. And so I think it's already the start of the Tony and Steve relationship we'll get later on.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like it's kind of like, because they're old school, for them it's not about like progress forward. It's about stick to your guns kind of thing. Yeah. Interesting.
We got the girls that want to go dancing. Steve runs off, goes to wants to go recruit himself to be a soldier again. There's an interesting
He's not tall
scene.
enough to see his face in the reflection.
Exactly. And there's another moment. It's more about who you are on the inside and not about your physical reflection on the outside. And like, I love that shot. He just steps on the pedestal. I love the guy before him. He just like steps and he looks so perfect. And then the girl's like, "Come on, soldier," or whatever. And like, it's like a joke. But then Steve gets in there. It's just, he's with no one. He doesn't fit the thing. It's just like
I kind of see it as that he doesn't need to change himself to be. He doesn't need to put himself in somebody else's, I guess, like, body per se to be somebody who's good, who does good.
Yes.
So yeah, another one of those moments.
I do like that. And then Bucky comes out and calls him out for it too, right away. And I really like the Bucky and Steve argument that happens here. They both have this interesting argument with the doctor in the background overhearing them. Now, it's funny because they both actually are right here. Both of them are arguing with each other, and both are right. Because, like, Steve's like, "No, you don't get it, Buck. Like, it's all about, what does he say? He's like, it doesn't, I don't want to just work for, like," he's like, oh,
I've got one line. "I have no right to do any less than them."
Yes.
And I really like that one because, it does show, like, he believes that, he's a part of this nation that other people are putting themselves on the line to protect it, like, the nation, but also the people. And that's how he feels. He wants to be able to do that, but it's not even just a want, like, he feels like this obligation, like, I have no right to do any less than that. Means, like, he really believes that he should be doing more.
Right.
Yeah.
But when Bucky calls him out and says, "Right, because you've got nothing to prove," right?
Yeah.
And like, you can see that moment in Steve where it's like, ooh, like, it almost hits him because it's like, oh, like, maybe even Steve's wondering it, like, am I doing this for the wrong reasons? Like, I think even he's just kind of like, you might be right. Like, you might, because he's been the little guy for so long. And it's interesting just seeing the two of them. But what I love is the fact that they still have that respect for each other.
Yeah.
They're mad at each other, and then right away they get back to you're going off to war. We need to make this clean kind of thing. And then they're just friends again. I love that moment. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. It's
Really
kind of
well
like
done.
two opposing brothers who
Yeah.
like, but they have each other's backs because they complete each other, right? Yeah.
Yeah. More Steve and Bucky, please.
Stucky.
Stucky. So then we get the good old doctor, likes Dr. Erskine. Erskine?
Erskine. I think that's the way that Red Skull refers to him.
Erskine. Okay.
Dr.
And,
Erskine.
I love how he like freaks out Steve at first. He's just like, which one are you? Are you from Bronx? Are you from like all these places?
Yeah. Do you want to go overseas and kill the Nazis?
Yeah.
And,
So you want to kill Nazis?
Yes.
Yeah, and then he's just like, I'm sorry. But yeah, then you get obviously the best line, you never answer my question, do you want to kill Nazis? He says, I don't want to kill anybody. I just don't like bullies.
Yeah.
And that's such a perfect line. He's obviously passing this test, the psychological test here of, are you power hungry? Are you there just to kill? Like, what do you want out of this? And he just wants it to stop. He doesn't like bullies. He thinks everything should be fair. He's very stoic about it. And that's what they're looking for, is someone to be like that. And it's such a great scene to, again, rip down everything and just tell you exactly who Steve Rogers is.
Yep.
That's why this movie's good. It's mostly because of Steve Rogers. It's not because of Red Skull, as we all know. He's not a very good villain in this movie. But Steve is fantastic on screen. You just want to be Steve. He's so good.
Yeah, at least you want to be the big Steve. You might not necessarily want to be the small Steve who stands up for himself and then gets beat up.
You want to have his personality, and I think the thing is he's larger than life though. Like no one is Steve Rogers, but that's kind of the point. Like he's kind of one in a million, which is why the doctor instantly says like, we're gonna give you a shot. Why we've had a lot of the big guys, maybe we need a little guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
He said, where does the little guy live? Another thing too, which is funny, is that Steve has been lying to all these guys, telling them different names and different places he lives. When the doctor comes in, the doctor says his name, and Steve says his name is Steve Rogers. He instantly tells him his real name, and I don't know if it's because he's intimidated, thinking that he's already screwed, or if he instantly trusts the doctor. Like I can't tell which one it is, but it's one or the other.
I guess I was under the interpretation that he already felt like caught off guard too. That,
maybe that was it. Yeah,
that it just like it wouldn't do him any good to just try to lie out of the situation, and not that he would like, he doesn't seem like the type that would necessarily lie to get out of being caught. Like he would just like fess up, right? I think that's part of his character.
It does seem like he's never given any of these recruitment officers his real name, Steve Rogers, and his real location, Brooklyn, because the guy asked him, which one are you, or where are you actually from? And he says Brooklyn. Yeah. That was never in the list of places. So it seems like he actually never went to a recruitment place in Brooklyn, which makes me think it's kind of funny that the first place that he doesn't lie about it, he says his real name and he says the actual city. That's the one that he gets to go. So it's just kind of this funny thing. Is like it was like meant to be. It was kismet or something. Yeah,
that's probably something more for the audience too. Like just be yourself.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Which actually is mostly what this movie is.
Yeah.
So then we get to go into our war montage, which is very Band of Brothers. It's very episode 1 of Band of Brothers, and it's kind of funny. I really like it where they're running up the hill and they're trying to get the flag. We've got that awesome flag moment where Steve is very smart.
Yeah, he just to show that he's not like later on when we see Captain America, he's not just all brawn, but he had brains to begin with. He's got ingenuity.
They're pretty smart in this movie by doing that to show you that he's more than just the strength. He's got more than just that, and I love that. That's what you want to know more of. He's a good leader.
Yeah,
so.
And I feel like they didn't overdo it. Like a couple moments there, because I can see like how you would want to paint more of a picture, just showing like way more instances of him being able to overcome by the use of his tactics and brain, and then once you've like been totally full on that, then later on you can flip the other side and you could just like go all brawn. Yep. But I think because Captain America, like the character himself, he's a pretty good balance of both. Like he never just runs into a fight like fist first. Like he's always got some sort of plan or strategy along with it, and so I think just getting a little bit of a taste for like that, I feel like the flag moment might be like the one truly defining moment where we see his brain in action. But
yes, especially since he's still the little guy at that moment too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just that is probably enough for me.
I also love the boldness of him not saying anything and just walking into the truck and just saying thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's so bold. I love it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did skip a little scene though. So we do get the introduction of Tommy Lee Jones and Peggy Carter. What's the general's name? I can't remember it right now.
Colonel Phillips?
Oh, Colonel. Sorry, Colonel Phillips.
Colonel Phillips. Yeah.
So Colonel Phillips and Peggy Carter, we get that scene. You already broke it down a little bit there, which is really funny. She punches the guy in the face, and then we've got this really stern Colonel Phillips and this really, can hold her own Peggy Carter.
Oh yeah, and I think it's such a shame that the series with Peggy Carter didn't finish. But I think just seeing her character in this movie alone, like there's already so much about her that would be so cool to see. Because she's a very confident and a very strong character, and I think it's also kind of interesting that when they introduce her, they don't they introduce her as agent because she is an agent, but then like they do it so quickly that it's kind of like you don't really have a second thought, like why is there an agent at this military? Like that doesn't really make sense because you'd think an agent would be doing like often like agent officer
right
or something like that. So it's obviously like a big deal that she is here. Anyway, that's side story stuff.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but I guess it's mostly because of the recruitment for the super soldier that they're trying to find. But I never thought about the fact that she is an agent, so why is she there at the military base? But that's interesting. So we get that scene, flagpole scene, and then we get the famous grenade scene as well, which went over in the little act before this. And I like that grenade scene because again it's hammering home the fact that it's all about who you are on the inside, and Steve again is willing to lay his life on the line for all the other men out there because I wouldn't say he thinks he's worthless, but he thinks that he at least can be the shield for all the other men out there. So I really enjoy that he does that.
I think it's like he thinks his life is worth putting it on the line for others.
Yes.
Something like that.
And then he would have proved something, right? Like I don't know, he's got a hero complex in that sense, I guess, and that can be to his detriment. They never actually have really done that in the movies as far as I can remember, but they almost should have thrown that in as a weakness of his, that he'll always do the right thing. So you can always bet on him doing the right thing.
Oh, I
see. They should have had a villain that played to that. I mean, actually, I guess Civil War kind of gets into that territory.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and they kind of do a lot of that throughout Civil War. I think maybe it's okay that they didn't put that into here because then we'd have too many things to focus on about learning about his character.
Well, it's a parallel to Harry Potter as well. It's another with the hero complex, and that's one of Harry's biggest weaknesses in that story as well. And it's used against him when eventually he just has a saving people thing that he does.
Another parallel with Harry Potter is that the main antagonists lack noses.
So we have Mr. Filch, we have a hero complex who has an orphan, and we have a no-nosed villain.
Yes, yeah, and that's how you make a movie.
Yeah, apparently that's how you make it. Yes. We also get the Dr. Oh, is it Erskine?
Erskine, yeah.
Okay, Erskine. Dr. Erskine. And Steve drinking schnapps. I really like this one. This is a really good scene. This line here where he says, people often forget that the first country the Nazis invaded was their own. That one hits me, like, it hit me in the theater when I saw it. And I never forgot that line. And I've used that line in conversation with people because it's so real. Like it's such a raw line. It's like, oh my gosh, like we're not even watching a superhero movie. We're watching a history movie here. It's like, it's sad and it's raw and it just gets you. It's so good.
I especially like how he decides to take both drinks.
Oh yeah.
And he says, I don't have a procedure tomorrow. I will drink. And I love that moment for some reason.
No, drink funny. Tomorrow? No, I don't have a procedure tomorrow. Drink today.
Yeah, you can't have fluids. No.
I drink it. He's so good. And my fiance when she watched after he does the Nazis invaded their own country line, he does a breakdown of General Schmidt. Or wait, is he a general? No, I'm getting all my titles mixed up here. He
was also a doctor, I believe, then became a general or something.
Well, whatever. He breaks down like the history there of Schmidt, and it's really interesting. And her and I were both discussing how it's like we never really remembered any of that, but they actually do break down quite a bit of this villain. So I can't say this movie doesn't give you enough of the villain before we see the villain at the end, because they do actually give you quite a bit of backstory about the villain and all about his motivation too. So we're with the villain throughout the whole movie as well. He's just not very compelling for some reason. I don't really know what it is, but he's just not that compelling.
I think it's just because it's just the search for power kind of thing,
I guess
right?
So,
and it's kind of like cliche, which is it's just supposed to be the opposing force to Captain America. Like Captain America is not about gaining power. It's about protecting people.
But there was a lot of great parallels in this movie. Like it's almost like they did everything right, except for maybe the villain just didn't have good enough motivation or something, but they did all the scenes right, and we'll get to that later on. But it's really interesting how they do the parallels between the two of them. If it was like a 5-part series, or let's say a Harry Potter-esque 7-part series, it would have been really interesting to see the parallels as they grow.
Yeah.
But in one movie, and only in one single contained movie, it's sad that that's all it really is. He just ends up being on the wall as another Marvel villain that we barely know.
Mm-hmm. And before moving on, so as Erskine is talking about like Schmidt's history, there's kind of like that montage where you see Schmidt with like the Hitler or the swastika kind of like flag in the background, right. But they show like multiple images of Schmidt like side by side, and it's almost like he's become Agent Smith.
Oh,
because there's just a whole bunch of like Hugo Weaving's just on screen.
Right?
Just,
yeah, of course. Yeah. It's Elrond. It's Agent Smith.
It's yeah.
I like how it cuts to the Red Skull's kind of hideout there, and it shows the guy who's painting him. I think this is an interesting touch. Again, it's something the director did pretty well, is we're not showing his face, but we know he's the Red Skull at this moment now. We know an operation happened to him and it went wrong. And I love how the painter is painting him, and without us ever seeing that painting, we know it's hideous, and we know that his face is only one color.
Because like the red itself looks like it's all like ravaged for some reason. Like
I know.
I don't know.
It's like the painting disgusts you and you've never seen it. And that's powerful. I have to say, like, they're building him up really well. Mm-hmm. It just falls flat, unfortunately, but they do build him up well. Yeah,
I would say the reason why it falls flat later is because like I think we don't get what we wanted to see happen between Steve Rogers and Red Skull. Like we get a lot of these moments where they meet a few times, but the meetings aren't. I guess it's just because of like Red Skull's character, because he's so confident in everything he's doing that like he doesn't feel stressed to change or to do anything different. Like he kind of just sticks to like, well, whatever, this is my plan, I just keep doing it. And so like I don't know, we don't need to see that from, or I don't know, maybe it makes less sense to see that from the antagonist, because we obviously want to see the antagonist lose, but then it's more climactic if he sees that he's on top, right? But it doesn't ever feel like that to me. Maybe it feels like that to Red Skull, but it doesn't I don't get that portrayal.
That's a good point. Yeah, they don't give him enough power to really control much, because the story, it spends so much time on Steve, but honestly they did a good enough job to convince me on Steve, so it's good. So we get a scene where Steve and Peggy are then heading off to go to the super soldier serum facility thing, and I don't have much to say except for I just love when they get to that little shop and the woman's just like, wonderful weather today. She's like, yes, but I always carry an umbrella. I'm just like, what if you forgot the code, just yes, but not in Paris.
But
and then they're just like, would you like to buy a coat?
Rain in Spain falls mainly or something. I can't remember what the thing is. Then what would happen? Would she shoot her? Like,
apparently she's got this Uzi. Tommy gun behind the counter. Like, geez.
Actually, wait, she's got an Uzi that she was using later, but then when she went to press the buzz,
it's not an Uzi, but yeah.
Or sorry, she's got a Tommy gun that she was shooting the Hydra person as he was escaping. But then when she went to buzz the thing to let them in, that was just like a handgun, like taped under the table. So she's probably got more than just. I think she has more than just that gun.
Weapons.
But then she doesn't get to use any of it. She just dies.
I bet you there's like a whole backstory to that woman that we don't know. She probably did so many crazy things before that moment, but all we got to see was her almost gunned down this guy.
Yeah.
Imagine if she did shoot that guy too. That would have like really just, Steve wouldn't have had to do anything.
That would be interesting. Then the first act just revolves around Steve just kind of getting to this point where he doesn't need to do the work.
Well, anyways, that's not what happened. So they go into Steve's operation, which is a good scene. I like this scene. It's you get all the characters that you already now know, and they're all in one room, and they're working together on everything they've been talking about this last little while, turning Steve into the super soldier. And it's interesting because you don't know as the audience like really what's going to happen. And even though even on rewatch of this film, you're still kind of like, you're still so intrigued. You're like, oh, how's it going to go down? What's all the procedures? What's happening to him in the moment when those pads hit him and stuff? And you're just like, you feel so tense for him. And then I love how they even like call you on that when they put the little needle in him. And then he's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. They're like, that was, what is it, penicillin?
That was penicillin. That was penicillin.
Yeah, exactly. It's so good. Because like
Man.
you are feeling like you're Steve in that moment. It's just you're not sure what's happening. And then when he starts screaming, when they turn on the machine and he starts screaming, yeah, you're kind of shocked. You're like, oh my gosh, like is it going wrong?
Yeah, and I kind of felt like his screams of agony, like for me that wasn't as believable as when he started saying, "No, I can do this." Like
Yes.
when he said that, I'm like, "Yes, you can do this. I believe in you." Like I was feeling
Yeah.
it. I loved it.
I agree with you on that. It reminds me of like Dragon Ball Z or something like that. One line doesn't hit as much, and you're like, that's kind of gross or cheesy. And then there's just another line that hits you, and you're just like, yes,
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's I do love that when he says I can do that, and you just feel it with him. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, Steve. And then thing comes
Yeah.
off, and the editors can finally. I was making the joke when he comes out of the thing, he's looking so like relaxed and kind of like, ugh, and like. I was just like, oh, that's all the editors. They're just finally relaxing. They don't have to do the CGI face on the body anymore.
Actually, okay, I got this impression each time I watched it. So when the thing opens up, there's a little bit of like a red glow, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? Did they give him like this red, like, is this supposed to be a red glow that he's like emanating energy? But then no, it just happens to be just like the inside of the container just was like glowing on
you know
him.
what? I
It
never
wasn't
even
just
thought
his
about that.
body glowing it.
With the parallel of the Red Skull, I never thought about that though.
It just, oh yeah, that's interesting. And then, but I also remember thinking in the theaters that like when the thing opens up, he just looks so cramped because his muscles are just way too big now. They just can't fit in the thing that he originally fit in when he was like an 18-year-old.
He's
body.
like a baked bread, you know. He just puffed up so much.
yeah, he rised.
Yeah, it must be so weird from his perspective to grow like a foot. Like,
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
like I don't know what
How
he-
do you feel
5'5", 5'4",
taller?
and now he's like 6'6" or something. I don't know how tall he is, but he's quite tall.
He ends up being much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it must be very strange, just suddenly looking down on things. But again, as the good doctor had said, you know, it's all about what he's got inside, and that's what matters. And quickly he gets tested. This next scene is pretty much just to show us everything Captain America can do. And so there's a spy in the facility. He uses one of his many lighters to blow up the building. I don't know how he gets all those lighters unless they're all the same lighter, but I assume they're different ones. I don't know how he like doesn't mix them up and like accidentally use the wrong one. Like
I feel like they probably all would have done the same job, right? Like
he just needs to be in the vicinity of the thing he's trying to do at that time with
Yeah.
that lighter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I
Bluetooth.
I think that's just like a Hydra. It's almost like a double or not double agent, like an agency thing. Like you know, be prepared for whatever situation, and these all do what you needed them to do.
I really like the spy aspect of it, but I wish like one was like a ballpoint pen or something just to like, mix it up,
Yeah.
like, just slightly. But still, it was fun though. It's cool to have a little spy chase. I like watching Steve run through the alleys and stuff, and he's suddenly getting his speed, and he actually goes too fast and like runs into the
And
building
crashes
and
into the
everything.
store. Yeah, exactly. Which is
It's
good
pretty
because then like it makes sense that he hasn't adjusted to this like completely new body.
Yes.
So it's a little bit more realistic.
He's like running for the first time. You know, it's really interesting.
He looks down at his feet like, whoa, I can run.
We get our second shield mentioned here, where he ends up ripping off the taxi cab door
Yep.
as a shield. It's even got the star on it, which I thought is just nice little imagery there. It's really well done. I love how you can take stills from this movie, and it's just got like symbolism right in the still image of it. So that's another good one. I love how somehow his cab door blocks the bullets. I guess back then cars are just much more made of metal and stuff. So
Yeah, they're all
Blocks
like
the
steel
bullets.
and metal. Nowadays they're aluminum or
yeah,
something.
or a
Yeah.
Tesla.
Or they're made of Tesla. Yeah.
It's Elon Musk. He's made a skin, and then they just naturally grow the synthetic skin, and then they make the cars out of the skin.
Yeah.
In fact,
And
the cars are living. Actually, he has two cars mate, and it creates more cars. That's actually
And
how
he
the
powers them
Tesla-
with love.
So then Steve catches up to the spy. We get that awesome scene with the little boy. Spy throws the boy into the water.
Into the water. I thought that was just so funny. It was very unnecessary.
I
Like,
know it makes no sense. He's
I
like,
guess
"Yeah."
I guess sure. Like they both like okay, as a bystander, I wouldn't have necessarily thought of it as like hero and villain kind of thing. I might have just thought of it like the situation as like, oh, this guy he's like a robber and like the clerk is chasing after him, and I wouldn't want to get involved with that because like whatever, doesn't involve me. And so when I see that he chucks the kid, it's like, oh, he's a hero, he must save him. And then the kid's like, oh, I can swim. And it's just like totally negated everything that just happened. That's just.
It is pretty funny though. It's okay, I can swim.
And then he's like, "Go!"
Just like-
he says to Steve, like, "Go get him!" As if he thinks he already knows. He's so confident in Steve's ability to take down this guy who he's never met either of them, but just believes that he can take him down. So it's like, I don't know. It's just a funny moment.
That's so true. I never thought about that.
That's
Well,
fine.
Steve does. He jumps down. He swan dives into the ocean and goes and gets that submarine.
Yeah.
Interesting scene. They just kind of tosses him like really quickly throughout the water
Yeah.
and then onto the thing.
He
I love how
punches
he
through
almost-
glass in the water.
Yeah.
First of all. Anyway, sorry. That's enough.
No, I know. It's to show you how strong he is, but it
Yeah.
is just it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do love how you think he's got him and he's about to get all the answers, and then the cyanide pill. That's a really smart way of showing the cyanide pill. It's horrific to watch it because you're like because again it's based on history. It's like it's a raw moment that's really interesting to see. But the spy using a real cyanide pill like that.
Yeah, and this is where I finish my act 1, because for me at this moment it's where like, yes, Steve caught him, but it was still kind of Hydra coming out on top.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Because like they don't get to capture him, they don't get information from him, and
Yeah.
he even does that line like, "I'll cut off one head and 2 more take its place."
Yes.
And so it is kind of just like, okay, well, Hydra pretty much won this round, even though you got my body, kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm glad you said that. That's exactly what I was saying too, because it is this whole first act is about Steve getting to know who he is and how he can make a difference in the world. And then this is the moment where he sees the threat that he will have to go against later on in the movie. So yeah, this is his introduction to Hydra, his personal experience to Hydra. And yes, it's a failure on his part. So he that's our transition into our next act. So yes, I agree with you there. Okay, let's move into Act 2, which I have named A Circus Animal.
Starts when Steve is super but not accepted into army. So like, that's the whole Act 2 name.
I just have to write like a short note so I know where I was talking about.
Okay, no, that's fine. I named mine the Star Spandex Man.
Oh, nice.
Because he wears a
I like
suit
that.
for like...
Star Spandex Man.
Yeah, because he becomes like known in that suit, and then even later on when he goes off on that kind of like secret mission, he's wearing that suit underneath like the extra clothes he puts on.
Right,
So he's
yeah.
pretty much got it on for the whole
Oh yeah,
act,
which is like the
that's-
tights.
he comes. What does he say to Bucky Barnes? Like, it's kind of growing on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Which is borderline getting into the Incredible Hulk territory of like wearing the shorts, but
Yeah.
it's at least it's not so bad. It's just it's one of those lines.
Yeah.
Not to scratch, Doctor. That's my Tony Stark built this in a cave for this movie. Is not to scratch, Doctor.
It's me. It's Steve.
Steve?
Come on.
Steve,
I thought you were dead.
I thought you were smaller.
I like that scene.
Yeah,
It's
me
nice.
too. So we've got just a quick scene where, just to break it down, Tommy Lee Jones tells Chris Evans that he no longer can be Captain America. No, he tells Captain America that he's not really worth it anymore. He was a failed lab experiment, and he's going to have to spend the rest of his days in the lab because it's not, the mission has failed at this point, essentially, which is where we start this act, because Steve is instantly, as I put it when I was watching it, right back at ground zero. So we just knocked him down a peg, and he wants to go back into the army and can't get into the army again. So here he is, right back to how he was before.
Yeah.
So we have the guy who gives him the opportunity to go into the Bonds game and get into weirdest take of all, but into acting. So
Yeah.
Captain America becomes an actor, which I remember seeing this in the theater. I had no idea they were going that direction, and it seemed so jarring and weird that that's where he went to. But I do like this angle. It's actually really smart to put him into the wanting to be in the war, but still can't be in the war. Now he's a mockery of the war, which is really funny.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but I like that you bring attention to that. That he, gets pretty much just goes back to square one. Even though, and that's probably just another call to this whole like yes, you have this newfound strength, but that's not what we need.
Exactly, and that's what he said. That's what the colonel says to him.
Yeah.
Is like that's not, you're not what we need.
Yeah,
You
I
can't- you're
wanted,
not enough to do that.
Yeah, I wanted an army, but I got one, or I just got you, or something
Yeah,
like that.
all we
yeah.
have is you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so he goes and he becomes an actor. I like this little montage of him doing his acting. You get Chris Evans doing some horrible acting, on purpose, and I think it's fun. Where he's just reading from the script.
Yeah.
All right, the barrel, your best guy's gone. I like the little shout out to the Captain America comics. I thought that was really interesting. You see all the kids reading Captain America comics, and it's got the old Captain America font and stuff on that. I really like seeing the old Marvel stuff actually thrown into the movies. I think it's fun to see that. It reminds me of Logan, where they had the X-Men comics in the Logan movie. So I thought that was just a nice callback.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do like the progression here, where it's like a montage of him getting better as an actor.
Right, so he's at least still progressing in some way.
Yes, and he's just suddenly like pointed at the audience, like a barrel of your best guy's gone. It's
and
like
then,
so much more bravado.
Yeah, and then yet again gets in front of the army and just gets cut down. Like they don't care about him at all.
That transition, man, is perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. And like if it was a real army, I feel like they'd be even worse. They'd be so much worse to him at that moment than just throwing food, like it's brutal. And it's good because it's so jarring for him, and it's like it's ripping him apart because that's where he wants to be. He wants to be with them, but he's like stuck still on the other side of the world here, just like again making a mockery of war. And it's then when he sees Peggy and she starts talking to him and he's saying like, oh, there's a 10% boost in bonds every time I do a show or whatever. It's like, that's not Captain America. That's not who we are rooting for. Like, it's so weird. So I do love that. It's not too long in the movie, but it's good enough to really tell us more about Steve and to almost postpone it, like Rocky style, just like postpone getting into the action still. So it's nice.
You know what? I think I remember thinking in the theaters that whole segment it felt like it dragged on for so long. But I think the span of time in the movie where he actually, like movie time, from the beginning, his first set to the time where he gets cut down in front of the army, I think it's less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's actually a very short scene, and I think maybe they just did a really good job of making it seem like a lot of time passes, like, because I felt watching it this time that he was in that role for so long that there must have been so much more happening in the war, that they must have been losing way more soldiers.
Right.
And it's nice that they were able to, for me, that they were able to do it in 5 minutes so that we actually have more time for the rest of the movie to actually get him involved in the war, like, properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do get this interesting moment where Peggy's off telling him that all the guys he just played for or did the stage for are it's only 50 guys out of like a unit of, I can't even remember how many. It was a whole bunch of guys, and they're all imprisoned.
I think it was 200, and then 50 came back, I think.
Okay, 50 guys came back, right? And then she says the number of like what it is, and he finds out it's Bucky's unit.
Yeah,
it's like
the
the
107th. 107th, yeah.
Yeah, okay. 107th. God, I love the numbers of the units. That's so cool.
And that must be called a something, right? That's a very specific number. Like if maybe it's an Easter egg, but I'm not really sure. I didn't look it up, but it's probably
That's
something.
a good point. I don't know. It could be like a comic book issue or something, like the first one that showed the Red Skull or something like that. I'm guessing, but I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Let's see. 107 Easter egg. First Avenger 107. 107. 107, 107. I'm seeing nothing, so let's skip that.
Okay. So then, after a long amount of jargon with Steve and Peggy, Peggy decides to help him, and we get this awesome scene of Howard Stark, Peggy Carter, and Captain America all off on a plane to head out to the unit. And I like that. I like how Steve is about to get in a Jeep. First he was going to walk, and then he's going to get in this Jeep and he's going to head out there. And then she's like, no. We're going to take Howard's plane. And it's like, oh, sweet. Like, this is cool.
Yeah, and then she says that he's the finest civilian pilot that she knows. And I wonder if that's supposed to be sort of like a tie-in to show, like, that's where Tony gets his piloting skills. Because he's
never thought about
he
that.
dons the suit and he can fly, like, pretty pretty fast. So
That's a really good point. Yeah, I like that.
It could be, maybe.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm sure that's what that was. I just never got that, but yeah, that's a really good callback to it because I mean, Rhodey, he's naturally able to use the Iron Man suit so well because it is made as a
he's a pilot.
Suit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, good call. I never even thought about that. But that's good.
Thanks.
But also, we get the more important. Do you two?
Fondue? Do you fondue? Yeah. Do you fondue? Hashtag fondue. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I really wanted fondue too. And they just kept bringing it up.
Wait, did they say what kind of fondue? Because I think in my head I wasn't sure what fondue they were talking about, so I didn't
the
get
chocolate or the cheese kind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they
What's
specified. Probably wait.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I don't. I have chocolate more often. The cheese one, I think when I just look at it, something about it looks gross. Like it reminds me of just a pool of cheese whiz, and I don't want to eat cheese whiz. I want to have like real cheese.
I know.
So
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I agree. The chocolate one is better, but the cheese one is very underrated. It's very good.
I can see that. Yeah. I just probably need the right foods to eat with it to dip into that cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like peanut butter.
Yeah. My hand wrapped in peanut butter and dipping it into fondue, cheese fondue. Yes.
So you do fondue.
Yes.
So we get Steve infiltrating the facility here. It's very Metal Gear Solid in my opinion. It seems a lot like the Metal Gear Solid games. I don't know if it's trying to be like it or not, but it looks so much like it. We got these big cargo trucks coming in. He sneaks into the back of one of them and fights those guys in a very cartoonish way.
Yeah,
their bodies are like hitting the canvas and stuff. It's very strange.
Yeah, I think it's probably better for him to be doing it this way rather than because like he's never actually been involved in war, right? He has some training,
right.
And I think he's also playing it smart. Like he knows he's just one man. There's only so much that he can do, so he's gotta, he's gotta just play it all smart, right? So he doesn't really physically get involved a lot until after he breaks everybody out.
I'll agree with you. I think it's the smartest way for him to get in here, but I think what happens next is really dumb. So he gets to the prisoners, and they're all like, hey, who are you? And he's like, I'm Captain America. And he then tells them all to riot and run out into the army base.
Did he say riot?
Not really, but he says, like, run out and go, like, find some guns and just... I don't even know his plan, but it's essentially his plan is run out of the base, go get some guns and start shooting things, and then let's get out of here.
Yeah, he says get out fast and give him hell.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right?
okay,
Which is
yeah.
like that's a little bit too dumb. Like I think because what proceeds to happen is exactly what you would expect to happen. A few of these guys start running out and they just get shot right away because they don't have guns.
Mm-hmm. And some of them get
like, Steve, what are you doing?
And they're not. Oh, see, they're not using their. Oh no, they are. They've got those the Tesseract energized guns by now.
They do actually start grabbing some of the guns, and some of the guys show that this was a good plan inevitably. But it's a really dumb plan. I feel like there was a better way to get everyone out safely than to just risk everyone dying.
Yeah.
For all they knew, these Hydra guys had like some crazy machine gun that was just going to mow them all down as soon as they left the building, right? Like, there could have been like crazy. There actually was really good security too. We saw the Red Skull starting to blow up the facility because he watched Captain America punch two guys and then said, "We're outnumbered." Well, Doctor, we're outnumbered. It's like, wait, what? Yeah. He saw him punch like two soldiers. And he's just like, "Better blow up the facility, Doctor."
Yeah, I guess like he knows that because they have Erskine that. Like the serum must have been used on somebody, or it was going to be used by somebody. So
I'm sure Red Skull's been in fights before where he knows he's outnumbered, though. So I feel like he knows exactly what to do to start shooting the super soldier. It is funny how terrified he is immediately as soon as he sees Steve do like a roundhouse kick on a guy or something. He's like, "Oh, Doctor."
Yeah, I really like when Cap punches Red Skull and then like his mask is kind of coming off a little bit, and you get a glimpse of that red, and it's
really
like
well done.
And it's nice that it's coming out at the eye because it looks so much more like it's not that it's grotesque, but it's so much more impactful that like it's like. I don't know how to explain it, but it just looks really well done, just having that part of the mask come off.
That scene is a really good scene in this movie. Even if the lines aren't great and it's not super compelling, as far as just symbolism goes and imagery, it's so perfect. You do get the main character and the main villain. This is my Harry Potter thing coming up. But they are in their battle. He punches Red Skull, like you said. Then Red Skull, what does he do? He ascends. He rips off his face. He becomes the true villain. Mm-hmm. We get to see who he really is.
Yes, this is me, not behind a mask.
Exactly. And just before they actually have their inevitable battle, the next thing that happens is the Doctor pulls the lever, and they're pulled apart physically. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we're going to pull them apart. And where are we? We're in the very middle of the movie at that moment. The exact middle point of the movie. And it's so, I don't know. If it was a better movie, this would have just been so poetic. Unfortunately, not the best villain, so it just isn't that great. But if, like, let's say that in a different universe, the Red Skull ended up being the Thanos to the MCU, this moment would have been so powerful.
That's
it would have
been
so great.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see these two evenly matched guys in this very anime-like battle right here. And it just, the potential there was so good. So I know it didn't work out, but it could have been great, is all I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, if it's not obvious by now, I have a bit of a bias in this movie. We're going to see other movies in the future where I'm just going to probably not enjoy that much. And there might even be better. Like, they probably have better moments than there is in Captain America. But I like this movie. It's it speaks to me in some weird way.
I enjoy it. And something about, I think because they have, like, there's a lot more depictions of Hydra than I remember, at least compared to later movies. But maybe this is something of like a call to like old school like New York gangster crime boss movies. But so the car that he drives, or the Hydra
love
car,
that car.
it's like, oh man, it's such a nice looking car, but it's like it's so long and
I know,
really
it's so
wide.
Impractical, but it's
And then,
beautiful.
it looks,
you just want to drive that thing.
And it's super powerful, like something that
Not
only
to scratch, doctor.
yeah, and it's something that only like a lot of money can buy. And then I think about how he had he's got like this Hydra pin, and then there's a Hydra emblem on the front of the hood.
Yeah.
And it's just when I'm thinking about
he gets in a Hydra plane. He gets in like the Skullmobile, you know. He takes the Skull rocket like to get out of there. It's very like Dr. Evil kind of thing. It's very interesting.
And I find it's funny that there's all this. It's almost like weird marketing that the evildoers have to like go through to plan all this. Like, okay, we're gonna make this car. Oh, and don't forget the Hydra pin at the very front of it.
Exactly.
We want to make sure everybody knows who we are.
Do you guys have the AI file for the Hydra logo? Is it ready? Is that the transparent one though? Do you got the PNG for us? Because we need it transparent for the stencil.
Yeah. High res, please. High res. We're gonna print it out soon. So yeah, high res.
Yeah, we're gonna get the Hydra website up soon. The version 2.0 on the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but I also like it because it's like good branding. Good branding is always great when it's done well. And,
yeah,
I love a villain that's got flair too, so it is interesting.
Yeah, it just makes them more recognizable too, right? Mm-hmm. Just like hey, we know who they are exactly.
Yeah,
so
it does remind me of Cobra from or is it? Oh my gosh,
Karate Kid?
No, I'm sorry, no, G.I. Joe. What's the other guys?
Oh, like Cobra Kai? Oh, sorry, no, that's Karate Kid.
The
oh, jeez.
What are they named? Aren't they Cobra?
Yeah, they.
Cobra.
Yeah, they're just
from G.I. Joe. Right. It is Cobra, right?
They're just Cobra.
Because you're right. Because my brain went to Cobra Kai after that, and I was like, wait.
That's
okay. Yes, it is Cobra. Yes.
Karate Kid.
It reminds me so much of Cobra. It's a red Cobra thing, and don't the villains kind of do the same kind of thing where they're like Hail Cobra?
Oh
like,
yeah,
got,
you're
like,
so
thing.
right. Yeah.
So I know it's all kind of very similar, anyways, but it reminded me of G.I. Joe for a little bit there, and I was like, because especially when they do the Hail Hydra and they have the two fists in the air. I was just like, this looks like it's right out of a G.I. Joe cartoon.
Yeah, and then after that, when we get Cap walking back with everybody, they also look like the G.I. Joe.
That's true.
Soldiers.
That's true. So I do like that scene actually when we get, the general is he's sad because he's like, okay, well we lost Steve, and you can tell at that moment that he actually did care about Steve, and you're like, oh, General. And that he cares about Peggy, and he feels bad for Peggy as well. So he's feeling that. Mm-hmm. And then you get the theme and the perfect slow-mo walk, and all the guys coming back, and that's such a good moment. Like it just puts a smile on your face because, again, it hits you emotionally because of actual history, but it's just also a good climactic moment in the superhero storyline as well. So this movie's doing two things at once. It's being historically accurate to some things. Obviously, it's not Hydra weapons, but soldiers who are POWs that eventually get rescued and come back to the base. That is such a raw moment that we can all look at with just happiness, and I love that. So
yeah, a moment of like genuine triumph.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not just Cap. That's one thing this movie likes to do a lot. Is it's never just about Cap. It's always about everyone working together as a team. So he couldn't have made it to them without.
Good point.
Without
that's
Peggy,
a really good point.
Without Howard, he wouldn't have made it to the POW camp probably in time to be able to get Bucky and everybody. And he also wouldn't have got out of the place if it wasn't for everybody's teamwork to be able to get out of there too. So, even though we get Bucky at the end here saying "Let's hear for Captain America," which I love. It's a cheesy line, but I love it too. It's just like yes, bravado. Yeah. But it's also like. Sure, he led them, but they all work together as a really good team. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. So I actually, I think I ended my act 2 here. Or did I end it? Let's see.
I went a little bit further, but not much. I went all the way up until... I just did a few more scenes that we'll just go over real quick.
I actually was kind of doing the same. Like, I was kind of wavering back and forth. I was going to name this part, like, Act 2, Part 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
From this point on, but...
There's not much more. It's just a little bit more of Steve building up. The reason I still put this in Act 2 is because this whole act is about Steve finding out who he is in the war. So he starts at not being in the war, to the end, he's in the war but fully suited up. So I actually end this act with a montage we get eventually.
Okay.
So just the next couple scenes, we get Marjorie Tyrell making out with Steve.
Yes.
It's funny to see her in this. I was like, whoa, Marjorie, okay.
And this was after she was Marjorie,
I don't
was it
know.
not?
2011, Game of Thrones 2000.
Oh, so it must have... Oh,
I don't
it
think
was
so.
before then.
Yeah, I think it's pre.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, she's interesting scene, and then she's like kissing Steve. I love how Steve just like doesn't know what to do, but he also just doesn't hesitate. He just is like, sure, okay.
Yeah, he's still the same guy who just like has no idea how to talk to women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, really like how pissed off Peggy gets. It's really it's a good reaction from her. I also just love how when he goes to Howard, he's like, so you two really were just fondueing. Like he's just like it's just fondue. Like it's
Yeah.
And then yeah. Just good scenes all around.
Yeah, and then okay, so actually with Howard, I totally forgot that he is in all these scenes in this movie. Like I totally forgot that he was even like there was even like a young Howard Stark in this one because we were talking about it.
He's a big part of Cap.
Yeah, we were talking about it last movie during one of the like the last recordings, probably in Iron Man 2, and I'm pretty sure I was talking as if like we never got a chance to see young Howard other than when he was in the Peggy Carter TV show. I totally forgot that he was in so much of
he's really
this
involved.
Captain America movie, which is he's really involved, which is great, and I find it really. I like that there's a relationship that Cap has that's very evident with a Stark.
That's true.
The more I say Stark, and we talked about like Walder
Game of
Frey,
Thrones.
it's
Yeah, I know.
so funny. Anyway. But anyway, so yeah, he builds up. He definitely has respect for Howard Stark that he builds throughout this movie because like he works with him in all these times, right? Which like it's easy for me to forget later on because of the relationship he has with Tony specifically, and then it isn't until when Civil War comes out, then for me that's kind of like the culmination of like he respected Tony Stark so much, which is why he wanted to protect him from what he knew about Howard and everything, right? So
right.
Anyway, side note, but yeah, so Howard Stark's in this movie so many more times, and yeah, so he's a very pivotal reason to why Captain America doesn't work just alone, but he's always been like a team player.
And with this moment in the scene too is where we do kind of get to see them finally become sort of friends, because it's also him telling Steve like, I know the way she looks at you, like I'm not wasting my time with girls right now, I like to just focus on work kind of thing, which is funny because I feel like Tony's also the same kind of way. Tony's also very introverted, even though he's a playboy on the outside, he's very introverted and just wants to focus on work, and that's actually why him and what's her name?
Peggy Carter?
No, Tony Stark's girl. Oh my god, what's her name?
Oh, Pepper Potts?
Pepper, thank you. That's why him and Pepper work so well. It's because they both end up being quite introverted and working well with their characters.
Right. So I just realized we missed out a Stan Lee cameo, which happened just before.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, at the awards ceremony.
Yep.
And then he plays some sort of general or something. And
yeah,
he says,
he's a leader of a country, I believe, or something like that. And he's waiting to then talk to the Captain America.
Yeah, and then well, I think he's just.
Oh, is he a
sitting,
general
like,
of the army? Is that what he's supposed to be?
General of something, because it's somebody else that's like waiting to. I think it's that Bonds guy who's waiting to give him the. The
yeah,
award.
yeah.
And then
see, I was talking to my fiance and I was looking away, and as I looked back, it cut away from Stan Lee, and I was like, oh no! I was like, we just missed a Stan Lee cameo, but like we just kept going. We didn't didn't rewind it. So
it's super quick. The other guy comes out to tell the Bonds guy that he wasn't
he's
there,
not gonna
and he's
be
like, I thought he'd be taller. And that's it.
Okay, yeah, there's that, and then we get Howard then offering Steve his shield, which is funny. He's gone this long and not had the shield. So he's had his other prototype shields, but this is where he's going to get his real shield. And I find this scene really weird. He shows Steve like a bunch of different shields, and then Steve's like, whoa, what about this one? And he's like, oh, no, that's a prototype. And then Steve's like, oh, what's it made out of? And
Yeah.
he goes, that's made out of the rarest material in the world. So then I'm like, for
like,
one, why is this still a prototype? Why is it a prototype? It's already perfectly shaped as a shield. And for two, why didn't you offer this first? It's the rarest material in the world.
Yeah, it's also kind of like a weird flip that he was so So Howard Stark just seems so engrossed in wanting to show him like all these other cool shields that he made, and it was like kind of like against giving him the vibranium shield. But then Steve shows his interest, and then now all of a sudden Howard's like, oh well, let me tell you more about this shield.
Let me tell you why this is the best shield out of them all. And for some reason, it was at the bottom under a table
on the ground, and then Peggy comes out and shoots him.
Yeah, it's a good scene for Peggy as well. Just like, I don't know if it works. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom.
And it works. Yeah.
But no, I mean, it is funny. It almost makes me think like just before he showed him the shields, he was like trying to hide the shields.
Yeah. Okay, so
I found the one. He's like, oh, I better hide that. He's trying to kick it under the table. Like.
So I'm just gonna mention this now, before we reveal your Act 3 name. My Act 3 name is called America, Captain America, because so mine starts off at like where he's in this war. Well, it starts off when he's in the war room, and he's getting involved in like planning this whole strategy for this invasion, and then from there he goes off to recruit his team, and then he goes to see Howard, and which is basically like James Bond's O. And
that's true.
Or sorry, no, is it Q? No, Q.
Q is the one who designs the weapons. Yeah, and you're right. I was actually gonna mention that earlier that he plays kind of Q in this movie, but yeah.
Yeah, so he sees his Q, and he's getting led through like all these items and stuff that he's going.
Ooh, he flirts with the secretary.
Sure, there's that too.
Moneypenny.
Yeah, he becomes he's a womanizer even without really knowing, and then the next scene we see a whole bunch of like him like using all of these gadgets that he's got.
Okay, yeah, that's not bad. Honestly, I'm totally fine with cutting it there because I like that. I think that makes sense. I actually like that better for building up for the Act 3. So without going forward in what I've got here, why don't we just cut off Act 2 and we'll just jump into Act 3 here then? Okay,
sure. So what was yours called?
Yours was America, Captain America?
Yeah, America, Captain America.
Nice. Yeah. So mine is called Impale Hydra.
Nice.
So that's when I was trying to think of a name. I was like, okay, I gotta think of a pun for Hail Hydra. It was just like as soon as I said that, instantly my fiance was just like Impale Hydra, and I was like, oh, done. Just wrote it down right away. I was like, perfect.
There's not going to be a safe landing, but I can try to force it down.
I'll get Howard on the line. He'll know what to do.
Now, there's not enough time. The thing's moving too fast and it's heading for New York. I gotta put her in the water.
Please don't do this. We have time. We can work it out.
Right now, I'm in the middle of nowhere. If I wait any longer, a lot of people are going to die. Peggy, this is my choice. Peggy?
I'm here.
I'm going to need a rain check on that dance.
All right. A week next Saturday at the Stork Club.
You got it.
8 o'clock on the dot. Don't you dare be late. You understand?
You know, I still don't know how to dance.
I'll show you how. Just be there.
We'll have the band play something slow. I'd hate to step on your...
Steve? Steve?
Stella!
It's sort of a Metal Gear reference.
Okay.
But it's it sucks that those two just don't get to see another life. And it's something that I was telling my fiance too with this movie. I think as I watch it more and more and more, I just get so sad that we don't like it. It's what makes Captain America so tragic and so stoic at the same time. He's very much like the Ned Stark, to use another Game of Thrones analogy in this. He's very much the Ned Stark to the whole MCU because he's a sacrificial, stoic character who can't have everything he wants. In spite of that, he still is stoic and great and a figure for everyone to look up to.
Yeah, he's unwavering.
Yeah. And it's
really
so
important.
sad. And just like the whole thing with him and Peggy, it's like, if you really think about it, and just everything that happens to him in life, it just must be so hard for the guy.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah.
My heart goes out to him. Anyways, in these scenes, you're right. We have kind of a James Bond aesthetic, where he's getting all his gadgets, his gimbos, and he's getting ready to go to battle. And we didn't mention it before, but he had memorized a map with all the Hydra bases on it just by like kind of looking at the map. I just gotta look, is what he says. Humbly.
Yeah, and I think that's supposed to be a callback to the beginning of the movie where before they drive over to the facility for the super soldier serum, that he's referencing all these places in Brooklyn where he got beat up.
Yeah.
So I think we're supposed to just know like, okay, he has like some sort of uncanny memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I guess
he's good at pattern recognition. He's just, again, he's a good leader. He remembers the good stuff, or remembers the important information, I guess.
Yeah. He's got a good brain.
That dare be a good brain. So this is, I gotta admit, the end of this movie is a little muddy to me. This act is probably gonna be my shortest one, just because it kind of just goes by. It's very muddled. So we kind of get some. I'll say it here. I don't exactly know where this is in the movie, but Red Skull kind of veers away from Hitler's army. And there's a scene where he kind of brings in some of Hitler's kind of aficionados, and then they're all just like, "Oh, the Führer is not happy with you." And then he's all like, "Well, die then." And then he just kind of kills them, and then they die. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, Red Skull just like is now as big as Hitler. He's got like a whole army of Red Skulls, or what are they called? Hydra guys. And it's weird. I was like, well, how many Nazi guys are now Hydra officers? Like, is this? It gets to the point where it's like, World War II is very different in the MCU. Like,
I mean, I guess maybe that's what it's supposed to be, like Hydra this whole time. They're just originally Nazis or something.
Yeah, maybe it started as Nazis and it kind of went more to Hydra by the end of it. Because it almost sounds like Hitler got really downplayed by the end of this. So I feel like maybe in the MCU, like Adolf Hitler is not as evil as a person as, you know, Schmidt is to like children. Like,
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. Like, but
Yeah.
it could be, because it sounds like he's got this huge army now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say just up front, this is my least favorite part of the whole film. I like the ending, the scene that we just kind of reenacted, but I don't really like this because I feel like the film was going somewhere great, and it all just falls flat on its face here in these moments. So.
Yeah, so I think the reason why I don't like Act 3 as much as I remember is because, yeah, there are a lot of moments where it just seems like it's less about Captain America as Steve Rogers. I mean, it's less about Steve Rogers and more just about like, okay, now he's got his powers, he's got a team, he's got resources, and let's just show him using all of it.
Let's just CGI a bunch of stuff and have a bunch of action sets that are, I don't know, in my opinion, not that great. The only thing I kind of like is the motorbike when the tank is shooting at him. He puts the shield in front of the bike. I do like that because you get a bit of like difference in like Steve's way of fighting, but it's just I don't know. So much of it is just not that fun to watch. And I think I think later on when we do Winter Soldier and Civil War, you get a better idea of how you can make the action scenes more fun, like we said earlier. But it's just right now, it's just, I don't know. It's weird. It just feels off for some reason. So it's not that fun to watch.
I think, okay, so one scene that I recall making me feel like this seems less, like now I feel like I'm out of the movie is when, so they show that like Captain America and the Howling Commandos, did they ever dub them the Howling Commandos, by the way?
I don't know if they said it in there. When I saw it written, I was like, oh, I didn't catch that. So.
Okay, yeah, because like the Howling Commandos is like Dum Dum Dugan and like all those other guys that he rescues, right?
Bucky.
So, and yeah, exactly.
That's about all I can name.
So they infiltrate this one place, and I guess one of like one of Red Skull's hideouts, and then they leave, and then Red Skull comes and sees it all broken and aflame. And he's like gripping his steering wheel like really tight and gritting his teeth, and it's like the whole like curses you, which is like now I feel like I'm not watching Captain America the movie anymore.
It's like watching He-Man.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm watching some like
he's like Skeletor or whatever
70s
cartoon.
Like, it was
it
looked very out of place. And
I
then
agree.
The next set of scenes we see, because like they're pretty much just showing what the Captain America and the Howling Commandos are actually doing in the army, and like how they're benefiting like the American side by. Like, they're just showing how they're contributing.
They're also, like, specifically different countries, just to show you. And I think they kind of had to, but it's just to show you that, like, it's not just America in World War II, which is smart. I mean, they do try to play up the French a little bit. They try to play up, is it Italy? They try to play up the Italian guy a little bit. They try to play up an Asian guy.
Japanese, but he's from...
Asian guy, but from New York, just to make you know that it's not just based on your race. So it's more your culture. Mm-hmm. And... So I do think that's interesting how they do that. That was smart. I think there's a black guy who's a translator, so he like knows all the languages or something. It seemed. Although we didn't really get that too much. He was speaking French in one scene, but then he speaks like Native American. Sorry, no, he speaks native. He speaks the American tongue natively, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So then we just get a whole bunch of like random scenes at different parts in the war where they're just like fighting. And yeah, it just seems like we didn't really need to watch all that, because it's now it almost seems like we're watching a war movie instead of a Captain America movie.
Exactly.
And this whole time, like we weren't getting set up to really watch a war movie per se. Like, yeah, in the beginning,
I like that it's there, but it's always been secondary.
Yeah, and so it's quick, but it's almost like, I don't know, it's just a weird amount of focus.
Yes,
is put on these moments, and then
it's jarring when you get to the Bucky and Captain America together on the train.
And
you're suddenly like, oh yeah, we're watching like the Captain America movie because you
now
are
that
out
feels
of it.
more. Yeah, exactly. And I actually get more of this whole like spy thing because like that's what, like, you don't see that in the army. People, like, in the army, they don't jump onto. At least we've never seen that depicted. I've never seen.
It's more like a Navy SEALs kind of thing. Like it's very tactical. It's very silent in the shadows kind of thing. Like it's not really.
There's a little bit more like sophistication to it. I don't know if that's maybe the right word, but that's part of why I see this more of still like the agent aspect, like the CIA agents and stuff like that.
It's almost
infiltrating
heist.
the train. Yeah, exactly. It is like a heist, and it's like this is the good guys' way of like getting on board and like doing what they need to like stop the bad guys. But it's it's such a weird departure from seeing that right after. Like, I think they wanted to set up like this is how the team works together, and then we get on the train, but we don't actually see the whole team working together.
Well,
we really
it's just too
see...
long. You know, it would be too long of a movie to really put all that in there. It's almost like you needed a second movie for that. But it's a story they didn't even need to tell. So
yeah,
it is very strange.
And then we see Bucky fall, and if we learn
but before that,
from...
just before Bucky falls though, I'm gonna be building a case in these 22 films why Bucky Barnes should be the next Captain America.
Right,
and he holds Captain's shield in this movie, and he does it in the way where he should be the next Captain America, and they almost play up to the point that he would be the next Captain America. It's actually to the detriment of him. It actually is what knocks him out of the whole train, is by holding the shield and getting hit by the laser blast. He goes flying out of the train. I mean, arguably he would have died anyways, but still.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it saves his life then, I guess, but. Regardless, anyways, I'm going to be building that case throughout this whole journey, and it starts with that moment of him with that shield.
Okay, as a retort, just thinking out loud, I almost feel like because they portrayed him holding the shield and it getting knocked out right away, it's almost like you're not Captain America, and you're not going to be Captain America.
Like, doesn't have the super soldier serum yet. So he falls, and then Cap, my fiance brought up something interesting. She's like, I feel like Cap would jump down there. And I was like, yeah, but they're on the mission. And she's like, yeah, but like the guy's already like captured because the other guys were already coming down and capturing the Zoha guy or whatever his name is. Zoloff. So he was already getting captured. So she's like, I feel like Cap would have tried to go and get him. And I was like, yeah, he might have. It is weird that he just kind of stands there and goes like, Bucky, or whatever he does.
But I guess like, okay, so maybe he wouldn't do it only because like they didn't have. I guess they could have flubbed it if he had the equipment. I guess he could have done it.
It's not part of the mission. It's definitely not something a soldier should do. It's just it is weird. It shouldn't be weird. It feels weird in the moment when Bucky just suddenly falls and Cap just like he doesn't accept it, but he just is sad. I mean, I do really like the next scene where he's trying to get drunk and he can't get drunk. Yeah, and like that at least shows you the emotion that he's having. So that's smart. But the actual moment of Bucky falling is awkward somehow. It's clunky. I don't know why.
Yeah, and side note, if his metabolism is burning 4 times faster than the average human, shouldn't he be hungry more often? Like,
we never see him eat. He never eats. Yeah, like that's what I was wondering. I was like, he gets the super soldier serum, he gets all beefed up. Now, does he have to maintain that body, or does it just stay that way?
Well, I think like the serum that's in him, like Dr. Erskine mentioned, like how it works. Like you inject these things that like they trigger something in your muscle cells, and then they give him the radiation, and that like juices all of that up. And so I guess it's supposed to be like a sustained thing.
So can he not get fat?
I guess
just
not,
eat a bunch of pizza and just be fine.
Yeah,
I mean he's gonna eat a falafel in the next movie we watch, but
yeah, I was just thinking about that too.
But he's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever, it doesn't matter all that much.
But it does matter. These are the things that are important to people. We want to know how his body works and how much he can eat.
Captain America, how good is your metabolism? Could you eat this whole pizza and show us?
Could you win a hot dog eating contest?
Probably could.
Yeah, definitely.
Not fair though. No heroes allowed. Gotta be prejudiced against heroes. Yes. Yeah, he was roiding for the game, so it wouldn't have made sense.
All just for the hot dogs.
So we get after the Bucky stuff. I don't really remember. He just kind of goes off to go to the Red Skull's base. I guess because Zoloff lets them know that.
Let me double check on his name. I'm not sure if it is Zoloff. I think maybe Zoloff is like a. Is that a like a
Dr.
like some sort of
Zoloff
prescription?
Dr. Zohar.
He's
Zuba. Zuba.
Oh, Zola. That's what
Zola. Dr. Zola. Doctor. Not to scratch, Dr. Zola. Zola talks to Tommy Lee Jones. They have their little banter back and forth. I believe
steak
he
looked really good.
It did look good. I believe
really
he reveals the location to the Skull's fortress. I think.
I don't recall. I think by now I was
See, this
really
is what I mean.
focusing on the steak.
I really lose the details here in this moments of the movie. I even watched a recap just before we did this, so I'm not that dumb. It's honestly it's a little bit hard to understand how they got from here to suddenly being in a car chasing down the blimp. Because it really, really feels like it just jumps ahead to this moment where Cap is now with Peggy and with Howard and with the general, and they're suddenly just in a car trying to get to the blimp. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't know. It just feels very rushed, and now Steve's on this mission where he's suddenly there at the blimp, we're at the Red Skull, and it's like, okay. Like, it felt like they just had to get there, and the editors just found their way. And I didn't watch the deleted scenes, but there was a few deleted scenes on there, and I was wondering if that fills in those gaps a little bit better. But
Yeah.
Maybe
then I guess that's just another reason why Act 3 just didn't really do a job as the first couple acts.
Yeah. So I don't really have much more to say until he gets onto the blimp and then starts fighting the Red Skull. Did you have anything before that?
Let me look at my notes. And troops running in. Carter with no helmet. I can do this all day. Says it again. Oh, but that's when he's already on the... Wait. No, he's not on the blimp yet. I can do this all day is when... This is before they get on the blimp. Carter, kiss. Car stops. One last look. All my notes, really, everything's just so, like, meaningless. So, yeah, final showdown. And then my notes before it started, like, I wrote down, like, is there actual combat, question mark? Because, like, this whole time, you know, we built up... We waited throughout the whole movie for them to meet to actually engage in, like, a full-on battle. Because
Super soldier fight.
Yeah, which, you'd expect that's something that you would have seen a little bit earlier, right? Like
Super soldier sumo is how they should have fought.
Ooh. Triple S. I guess, and maybe it would have been cliche if they had an encounter earlier, and knowing that Red Skull has had the serum longer, that he was able to defeat Captain America because Captain America just wasn't used to his body yet. And then we come to this point later on where Captain America, like, he's just gained all this knowledge now, and he's able to overcome Red Skull. But then, yeah, maybe that would have been too cliche, and so we just skipped to the very end where finally they have like a hand-to-hand combat, which also doesn't really last that long at all.
There's a moment in Metal Gear Solid in the series where two characters are enhanced with a similar serum that's very similar to the super soldier serum, and it makes them, they're like older men, but it makes them quite powerful, and they're fighting each other, but they're both so prolific in fighting that they end up perfectly matching each other, and it's very anime, but they just end up like fighting exactly to their own moves. And so they're just like wearing each other down exactly at the same time, to just whittling down and down and down to the point where they're exhausted. They fall over, and then they both look at each other in that battle hardened spirit. They both, and it's weird, but they both grab the serum and they inject it into each other's necks so that they both get back up and fight again. And it's so good. It's so interesting because it makes you just realize that, like, it is pointless for the battle, but it's so much more than just a fight. It's about the story you're trying to tell. And I felt like that's what was missing in this fight here. Their fight was so lacking in any kind of motivation. It's just the two of them going, "Rah!"
Yeah, and like the fight. Okay, so leading up to that, like he had to get on, like he had to stop those other planes from taking off and heading toward like those other destinations, those like little mini planes. And then he finds his way back and crashes it back into the craft to fight Red Skull. But then, now that we're fighting him, so the thing is, we just saw Cap literally hanging on to this little mini plane. Like humans don't do that. You don't hang on to a plane and live, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing this like such great amount of power for him to overcome these feats, and all of a sudden now he's fighting Red Skull. But because they're evenly matched, it just looks like two regular guys fighting.
Yeah.
So the impact of Captain America's super soldier serum, or just his abilities, has now, like, the scene makes it so much more diminished, because we're Like, we're not really seeing a fight that is it's about Steve Rogers as a character. We're just literally seeing this man try to stop another man.
Exactly. There's no storytelling to their fight at all. Every combat scene should always have storytelling to it. It's got nothing in there. So it's boring, unfortunately. But then we have the inevitable Tesseract taking over the Red Skull, and he does sort of some kind of teleportation disintegration thing that at the moment when they were making this movie, I don't really think they knew exactly what they wanted to do with this. They just kind of wanted to freeze him in time a little bit. But later audiences now, when we're looking back on this, we know that the Tesseract contains the Space Stone. So it must be teleporting him, and inevitably teleporting him to whatever that world is that he ends up becoming a guardian. I would assume is where he goes directly to, but maybe there's a journey on the way there. I'm not sure. But it must teleport him somewhere else. And then the stone, or the Tesseract then falls through and outside of the blimp, which I forgot about. I had no idea where the Tesseract was by the end of this movie. And I was interested to see that it does inevitably just kind of leave and then get discovered again.
Yeah, I guess. So how did they? Was that in the post? No, that wasn't post-credit scenes. That was
it's just it's a really quick scene of Howard Stark finding the Tesseract and just
by
digging
finding,
it out.
like the trails of energy or something like that. Yeah,
and I think it's interesting because again, it's another thing of Iron Man in a way leading, or let's say Captain America leading the way for Iron Man to be developed later on. Because I would assume that Howard would have used that to start coming up with the ideas for his arc reactor technology, right? Because the arc reactor doesn't come up at all in here with the Expo or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering if it's after he sees the Tesseract that he starts to understand a little bit more about these sciences and learning the arc reactor stuff, which is what gets Tony all into Iron Man anyways. So, it's the birth of Iron Man just by all of that. And then we have the famous scene that we already recreated of Steve bringing the bird down.
So sad.
Bird down. Yeah, it is a sad scene, but it's inevitable to get Steve to where we want to see him anyways.
Yeah, very true.
I mean, in an alternate universe where we saw a Captain America 2 where he actually stayed in the 1940s and we got to just see him live the life in the 1940s, that would have been fun too. I would have liked that.
There could have been like a little spin-off, like, or behind the scenes stuff, or extra footage for Endgame, knowing that he does kind of, like, go back, right?
That would have been nice, yeah. Oh, they should have done that. Just showing a clip of Sebastian Stan and Chris Evans, but like in their military uniforms, like younger. Oh, it would have been great.
It would have been cool. Yeah. Let's see. Stark finds the Tesseract, and then yeah. So, maybe this is a little bit after. Let's see. So he crashes it. He's in this in this place where apparently the landscape just keeps changing all the time, which is why they finally uncovered it in the beginning of the movie. And then after that, is it the end of the war, or like the scene where everybody's celebrating?
It looks like it is. I think it's Victory Day or V-Day. I think that's what they're trying to portray. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But again, this is kind of alternate history here, so I'm not really too sure.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and then we see, let's see, we see a kid with a garbage can as the Captain America shield now.
Yeah. Which is good because again, he becomes a symbol. He becomes the literal shield. So it's I've always liked that about Captain America. He is a sacrificial character to be representational of shielding the world, right? Which is funny because it's actually what Iron Man ends up taking on for MCU, is trying to literally build a shield around the world.
And he kind of acts as the shield like a few times too, like the first one being in
which
in Avengers
I think
as
is why Steve and Tony end up having so many arguments, because they're both actually trying to find ultimately the same thing.
Yeah.
So I've got the hospital room of Steve waking up.
Well, let's go there, because there's pretty much not much else that we can talk about. That everything else in the middle is kind of just like, okay, that happens. It kind of just plummets for me. It's the going to just the action bullet points. There's not as much that happens in the end here. So much of this movie is the first act. But yeah, him waking up in the hospital room. This is a weird one because he wakes up in the hospital room and he looks unsure. And when the nurse comes in to just be all like chill with him, he instantly knows something's up. And the reason he knows something's up is because he's heard that baseball game before because he was there. He was at it. Yeah, so the baseball game.
What?
Well, okay, so we already know he's got a good memory, right? So I guess that's what it's supposed to be. Like, the baseball game is from 1941.
Yeah.
And the war that he was taking part in, like, when he was taking part in the war, it was 1942.
Yes.
So it was like within a year after that. So I guess it was like a really memorable game.
But what if you're S.H.I.E.L.D. and you're building this fake hospital bed? Why would you play any recordings from before he went to the war? Like you would only want to play from 1942 because he's gonna have military records of when he signed up. Yeah, so just literally look. You would only look at the year and then anything after that because regardless, you're trying to simulate as if he just woke up from this crash. Yeah. So you would want it to be months after the crash, best case scenario. But if you don't know, then just look at his military records and go years. Anything after that time, it just seems like such a weird thing to misstep for S.H.I.E.L.D. And
and they must know exactly when, like roughly around the time when he did crash. So they know. Yeah, that's a good point.
At least they know when he enlisted, so it's very strange. But still, whatever. It is what it is. It's a fun moment where he's again using his brain and his logic to understand that something's up, and he breaks out like a ravaged animal. Yeah, breaks out of his cage.
He breaks out almost like when he first became the super soldier.
Yeah, exactly. Like crashing into the side windows and stuff like that. Like he is quite abrasive bull in a china shop kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And just running out on the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ignoring cars.
Nick frickin' Fury. Captain America. Like Nick just comes out of everywhere, just always like, welcome to the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there was a lot of memes at this time because it was becoming a joke already. It was just like, and then Nick Fury shows up.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's just like, you watch the movie, okay, congratulations, you are now an Avenger.
Yeah, all the endings are just, they're very similar to that. And then they kind of do it twice because they do it there. He's like, sorry to wake you up like this, Cap, kind of thing, but the world needs you. And then like it goes to the credits and the after credit scene. Now there's actually two, but the one that I saw was him punching the bag in the gym. He's punching the bag, and then Nick Fury comes in to recruit him for the Avengers. And I was like, we kind of just went over this. Like this just happened already, Nick. So it is kind of funny.
Yeah. Wait, there's two post-credit scenes?
Yeah, another one, and I couldn't find it, but it's what I saw in the theaters, and it was the trailer to the Avengers.
Oh, okay. So on Disney Plus, it is the trailer for the Avengers.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sorry, the trailer comes up right after the scene with Nick Fury.
Oh, so they played the trailer. Oh, so maybe there's just two at the end of the movie then. Okay, I stopped it after the Nick Fury scene.
But they might have. Maybe they played it differently in the theaters. I don't know for sure.
No, because I did recognize the Nick Fury boxing gym scene, so I just kind of thought that it was an alternate one that I had seen somewhere else. Okay, well I didn't realize that, but I remember that being a big moment in the theater, seeing the Avengers trailer. That's what I came to see. So I was so excited to see that moment. And now that you've shown Captain America this whole time, it's like, okay, well this will be interesting to see him in the modern day. But I was so much more interested in Thor and Iron Man at that time that I didn't really care much about Cap.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I agree with you. Now that I'm watching it again, knowing that the post-credit scene was basically just what we had at the very end of the movie. Like, why
it's
was
weird.
That?
It's kind of just like instantly like, yeah, you're the Avenger. Okay. Yeah. One thing is that apparently this was supposed to be Fogsworth's gym. What's his name? Foggy's gym from Daredevil. So.
Oh, cool.
Foggy Daredevil's Nelson? Yeah, Foggy Nelson. His dad owned a gym that was like in the comics for Daredevil all the time, and that gym, cool. I believe, was like it had like a boxing ring in it, and it had something to do with Matt Murdock's dad as well. And this scene here where Cap is punching in here, I believe this was originally going to be that gym, and they were going to kind of connect this into an inevitable Daredevil movie they were going to do. And then they just did the Netflix Daredevil stuff, and they didn't really connect it. But I just put a note down for that, because I remember at the time there was so many people talking about it, being like, this is going to be like tied into Daredevil and stuff, and it was like so cool. And unfortunately, cool. It never mattered.
I wonder. Okay, so this isn't the first time that there was some sort of, I guess, like the MCU did something to ensure that they have something to use for later on. So, like you mentioned, like the whole Tesseract with Red Skull, that he got zapped up, and then they kind of like could potentially use him elsewhere just because we don't know exactly what happened. But now with this, like with the boxing ring thing, I wonder if like when they're writing stuff out, when they're actually like storyboarding the whole movie, that when they get to something, somebody's just like, okay, who owns a boxing ring? Anybody in the MCU owns a boxing ring? Can we just put Steve in there?
Oh yeah,
and
exactly,
then we can use it later on.
Can we hopefully try to connect that?
Yeah. Like I'm curious to know like how the brainstorming works for that.
I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of like that.
Yeah, I guess
because I don't know how else you do it, right?
Yeah,
but I guess they just have to get those people that really know the comics, not us, but people that really know the comics.
Definitely not us. Nope. We just watch the movies and rip them apart.
Okay, we took a little bit longer on this one, but that's fine. It's one of my favorites, so it's fine to take a little bit longer. That's okay.
It's worth it. Yeah,
Under 2 hours, and I'm still happy. So,
Nice.
Anth0z, what was your worst character for this film?
Oh boy. I'm not sure. You go first.
Worst character. Who did I not like? I'm gonna have to go with Red Skull, even though he was better this time than I was expecting. I was shocked how much I liked him this time around, but his doctor guy ends up playing way better. And the scene that the doctor really convinces you as a good sidekick is when he's being interrogated by Tommy Lee Jones, and he goes, oh, he believes he's a god. And then the guy's just like, oh, well, obviously he's crazy. He's like, why would you even want to follow somebody like that? And he's like, because he is. And like, just the way he's so convincing in that moment, you're just like, yes, like, he's a good guy. But the Red Skull, for some reason, just plummets. He loses any kind of sense of motivation or threat over the course of the movie. So he's my worst character in this film.
Okay. I think I might have to agree with you on that one, only because, there's a lot of moments where, like, we have these expectations of him because he's got all this confidence and also because he's the villain. And it just, like, it's not as entertaining to watch him go through his arc. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is your best character in this film?
Oh boy, I want to say, when I actually thought about this question throughout, like, when I watched the movie the other day, and I was thinking that it was Dr. Erskine. But I think it's only because I just always like Stanley Tucci and everything he does.
He's so good. Hunger Games. He's so good in the Hunger Games movies.
He's great in Hunger Games, man. And also, like, Devil Wears Prada. I don't know. I love him in everything he does. I think we needed more time for him in order for him to be like get that best character mantle. So I don't know. I kind of have a toss up between him, Dr. Phillips, and Peggy Carter. So it's like a 3-way tie.
Oh, the General Phillips?
Oh, sorry, did I say Dr. Phillips? General Phillips.
And Peggy Carter. Ooh, interesting.
Colonel Phillips. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colonel Phillips, right? Colonel. I keep forgetting.
Colonel Phillips. I think just because, like, they seem very, like, their characters, the way they are, seem so pivotal for the reason of for things that Captain America kind of has to, like, learn.
Yeah,
from.
for Steve's development, they're so pivotal for his development throughout this film, and Bucky as well, for that matter.
Yeah, Bucky too. Exactly. Yeah.
So my favorite was going to be the Doctor as well, if you didn't say him. But it was a tie. Like, it was him and the Colonel. They are so fun. I laughed so many times in this movie just on their lines, and I forgot how funny they are in this film. But my favorite, it was still gonna be Steve, just because Steve Rogers, like, the movie is really Steve's movie, and it convinces you on Steve, and that's all the movie's trying to do, is convince you that Steve is genuinely a good person who is now a hero, and he's the first Avenger. And I don't know, they do a good job of telling me that, and by the end of this movie, you like Steve. You might not like everybody else during the ride. You might not like where the ride went, but you like Steve no matter what. Yeah. So
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Okay. Which question do you want to ask?
Let's go with this. This one might be fun.
Okay.
This one.
You go ahead.
So, despite what the sequel led to, what direction do you think it could have gone?
Yeah, so it does move into the Bucky and Steve territory, which is kind of exactly where I wanted it to go. But despite it moving that way, I do think... Well, okay, I like the whole Steve and Bucky stuff, and that's definitely what I wanted, but let's go a different way. I think that could have stayed, but we actually... I really wish we kept the Red Skull. So I wish there was a way that maybe the Red Skull mantle got taken up by somebody else, who maybe didn't actually have the deformity or anything like that, but was still, like, with the moniker of the Red Skull. Okay. And they were the evil arch nemesis. They were still had, like, a German accent kind of thing, and they were still pulling the strings behind a lot of stuff. And Hydra would have still been a big part with, again, a Red Skull baddie. Because I really like the Red Skull being an enemy for the whole MCU, just as Loki could be, just as Thanos inevitably is. And I think that would have been a better sequel to lean into that instead of the whole government spy stuff with Hydra. I think it would have been better to still have that big baddie. But I understand it didn't have to work out that way, but I would have liked to see that.
Okay, cool, nice. I like that. I like the idea of bringing back the moniker of Red Skull, just because it would have been nice to see a little bit more progression in their their relationship with Cap and Red Skull. I was thinking that if it didn't, like, okay, so it would still have to take place in present day because that's where the movie ends off, and I would be curious to see if they were to take a route where Cap says, I don't want to be a part of this yet, like I'm not ready for this, I'm a soldier, and he ends up like wanting to still fight, like enlist in the army or whatever, and then maybe uses that time and resources to potentially search for Bucky, and then in the midst of that, actually it would be kind of cool if that's where he then encounters like the moniker of Red Skull, who has been doing his own kind of like side missions kind of under the radar, but that's uncovered because Captain America has involvement in the army, which leads him to that. But then I think because of the limited resources he gets through the army, and because I would see that SHIELD is probably on the lookout for any kind of notion of like more abnormal things like the Red Skull moniker or something Hydra-esque that they would be involved in. They would kind of cross paths with Cap, like being a soldier, and Cap realizing like, okay, well, I don't have the resources where I don't have the resources being in the army, but if I work together with SHIELD like this one time, then we can get this job done, kind of thing. So it could potentially work out in a story like that, maybe. Who knows?
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that'd be good.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, well, do you have any final thoughts then for the movie?
I give it an A for Captain America.
Nice.
What about you?
I like it. Yeah, I'm in the same boat again. I have a huge bias for the film. I understand that it's not perfect by far, but there's so many good things that were done in this movie that I think get overlooked in the long run, just because Winter Soldier is very good, and Civil War also has some really, really good moments for Captain America as well. So I just feel like this one, like without this, those aren't as great. But that doesn't mean this movie is perfect. It has so many good moments, and I'd love to call them out. So yeah. I was happy to watch it again. Every time I watch it, it's a little bit better. And yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, definitely fun. Glad we watched it. I'm glad we are going through it like this because, yeah, as we said, that there's a lot of things that we're catching now which we wouldn't have caught before. And I think that's really, like, I really appreciate that because I enjoy these movies. So if I can get more out of it, then I think it's really worth my time. And so
exactly, yeah. And going forward, it's gonna be so much fun to see what we actually notice in these movies that maybe we didn't see earlier, because I'm not like a comic book aficionado or anything like that, so I don't know all the ins and outs to all this. So what we can catch is just exciting, so it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with that, thank you guys for listening to this podcast. Be sure to catch us on our next Marvel Marathon episode, The Avengers, which is actually going to finish off Phase 1 of the MCU. I can't believe it, but we're almost done Phase 1 already.
Yeah, it took a while, but it was also quick.
In a weird way, yeah. It goes by fast, even though it's for us every 2 weeks that we're doing these. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hear the Avengers theme song in my head. How does it go?
Dun 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 dun. Oh no! Oh my god! It's in our theme song.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, there we go. Okay,
I'm gonna have to redo it on keyboard when I was doing the intro, anyways, and I forget it.
That's
but whatever.
Nice.
Anyways, thank you guys for listening. Have a good one. We'll see you in another episode.
All right.
Bye-bye.